catch you live, covering all things professional wrestling. A show by members of the Busted Open Nation. Welcome to the Nation's Corner. Here are your hosts, the Nation's Corner crew.
Hey, what's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Nation's Corner on a special Sunday edition post Bad Blood. Joining me this week is Debhausen, the great and powerful, and John in South Jersey. What's up, people?
What's happening?
We're cheersing already?
Yes. Well,
Cheers.
Well, I have vitamin water, so it's not terribly exciting.
somebody snuck some more whiskey in my coffee tonight.
Oh.
I hate when that happens.
I hate when that happens, but I'm going to drink it anyway because why waste good coffee?
Fair enough. Okay, so we're coming off the heels of a really cool special pay-per-view premium live event. Sorry, I'm still not used to calling them that. Early start time 6 p.m. So we were done early, then the press conference, and then everybody and their brother had a reaction video or a podcast, and I think like 3 a.m. before we wrapped everything up.
Right.
It was a hell of a show. A lot happened. A lot of stuff happened afterwards. A lot of stuff to catch up with. Just real quick, I was talking to some folks last night after the show, and it was like, as we were talking, more and more stuff was coming out. There were social media events. There was backstage things. There were people making posts on their own Instagram. They had like talent were releasing stuff at a crazy pace last night, and I don't think I've caught up with all of it still. I still didn't catch the press conference. Like, let's start at the beginning. Deb, what did you think of the overall show?
I really enjoyed the overall show. I watched it this morning. As some of you know, I was out having a campfire with some family last night up in the Poconos. So I did not get to watch anything last night. So I caught up as much as I could this morning, watched the show, but didn't get to watch any of the other like post show and all the ancillary podcasts that we all follow. But I loved the show. I thought top to bottom, every match was exciting, and there was a lot of stuff that happened in each individual story.
Yeah, and John, what about you? Oh, by the way, we have to wish you a very happy birthday, which was yesterday, which we did celebrate.
Yes,
but happy birthday plus one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Despite all the odds, I continue to make revolutions around the sun. So
you're just revolving on your own? Or how does that work?
Yeah, well, so I'll get it. We only have an hour, so
okay, fair enough. It's all sciencey.
My impression, first off, the one thing that stood out to me above everything else that we saw during the premium live event, how cool that now opening videos for the PLEs are must watch, because if you remember, we saw Cody and Bloomin' Metro, who I have no idea who that is still, but we saw
Metro
them.
Boomin'.
Metro Boomin'. Yeah. I have no idea who he is, but here he is in an unmarked cop car with Cody Rhodes, and they're on the stakeout. And that was the only ad that we had for Bad Blood for a while.
Yeah.
And the first 5 minutes opening the show is the explanation of how we had Metro Boomin and Cody in an unmarked cop car, and I thought it was absolutely effing brilliant. That even that now is canon, is part of the story or part of the story that WWE was trying to tell. And after that, I said this pay-per-view could be an absolute stinker. That first 5 minutes absolutely made it worthwhile for me to watch.
So you know what it reminded me of? A video game where you get like the kind of the film sequences in video games.
Yes,
that tell the story.
and
cutscenes.
And unfortunately, the pay-per-view, I agree, was not a stinker at all. It was fantastic. Overall, I would give it a solid A. Overall, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't every single match didn't knock my socks off, but overall, it was a very entertaining 2.5, 3-ish hours. and
Yeah.
everybody had plenty of time to work their matches. They didn't have a whole lot of, cutscenes per se, or backstage stuff, or anything like that as filler. It was pretty much, here's the start, here's the matches, and very little in between. And here we are at the end of the show.
And so you said something that's really, I think, important. Like right at the beginning, we know we're already seeing all these changes over the last, let's say, year and change. We've seen production changes, obviously long-term storytelling, but even right at the very beginning, when Triple H says to Cody, "You're going to go on a stakeout with Metro."
Yeah.
He goes, "What Metro Boomin?" He goes, "How many fucking Metro
do you know?" That's
I know they edited it, but like it was still perfect. Like,
Yes, it was funny. I imagine
like-
they had a lot of fun filming that scene.
imagine so.
yes.
But yeah, you're 100% right. Right from the beginning, they set the tone of the night. And I'm just looking at, obviously, 5 matches. The shortest match on the card was Damian Priest and Finn Balor at 12 minutes, but the 2 women's matches each got over 14 minutes, which is healthy amounts of time for a pay-per-view match.
Yeah.
The main event got about 25, and then the Hell in a Cell was over 30 minutes. So it added up to just the right amount of time in your evening. Like, we were done at a reasonable time. And you're right, it just felt like everything got the right runway to tell the stories that they were trying to tell. I did want to just real quick, there's so many people in the chat already. Thank you guys for joining on a Sunday. I see Neil and John and RA's in there, RJ, Brooks out there, Mike, our very own Mongrovian Mike is under the weather tonight, so we appreciate you watching and hope you feel better, man. Oh, Steve's in there, Billy. Holy cow, we got a lot of people on tonight. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and
more
so
joining.
if there's anyone that's watching that's not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And I was looking at some YouTube stats last week, which I don't usually do, and it kind of seems like about half of our viewers don't subscribe. So, which I guess is common from what I've heard from Chris Van Vliet. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and share it. Get more people tuned in.
Yeah, please do.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Also, one thing I wanted to mention, Steve said in the chat about he only knew 2 of those rappers, Lil Baby and Metro Goldberg. So I wanted to mention, they made a point of showing all these various rappers and hip hop artists that were in the crowd. Being in Atlanta, most people are aware that Atlanta is such a crucial part of hip hop and rap culture and history. And, I know that there's been some discussion of kind of that WWE has really focused on that hip hop rap genre. And I think especially right now, that's really crucial in getting the young viewers. All these artists are, very, very popular among young people. And I know that, it may not be our cup of tea as lovers of rock music. But, think about in the days when rock music was the dominant genre of music and culture, that, back then the old people didn't like it and didn't understand it. And, now we're the old people and we don't like and understand the young culture. So I just wanted to mention that, like, it might not be our cup of tea with all these rappers. It might not be our preferred style of music, but it is really shown how it's very, very crucial and important in getting those young viewers. And yes, young people may suck.
F them
Yes,
kids.
they can.
So do some of the old ones.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
In some
They ain't
ways.
perfect either.
RJ, I think you think of Metro Wireless. I think that's a different company entirely.
Is that the one with Ryan Reynolds?
Maybe. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff out there now.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah.
Well, I agree with you 100% on that, Deb. But I hate to, state the obvious, but in a very famous Hall of Fame speech that we all watched at WrestleMania this year in Philadelphia, one Paul Heyman said, "Who was going to bring heavy metal in the wrestling? Who was going to bring hip hop in the wrestling?" So going back that far to the beginnings of
yes.
ECW, and to see how it's evolved, and we have seen, let's not forget, very recently we had one of the most, if not still the most popular artists on the planet in Bad Bunny. Again, I couldn't tell you one song from Bad Bunny other than the entrance one that I literally heard like 20,000 Puerto Rican people in Puerto Rico singing when he came out for that hardcore match. Yeah, I still have no idea, but I know it. So that, I think WWE, even more so now in the Triple H era, is absolutely more cognizant and more readily available to do things with, than that Vince would do, because, oh, I heard this name. Oh, this guy Kid Rock is really important or something right now. Let's get him on the show. No, it's not that. It's Triple H is actually, he's engaged more with more groups, more communities, more getting, and the whole object, obviously, and it's obviously working by the number of sellout shows that WWE has. It's getting eyes on the product, and that's ultimately
to expand the viewership, especially among the younger crowd. And Elder says in the chat, metal is still around and viable. Yes, it is. I'm not arguing that. We all love metal music, we all love rock music, but the fact is that it is not the dominant culture among young people. Obviously, there's still going to be people that are still interested in that music. There always will be. But the dominant form of culture in the younger age group is rap and hip hop, and there's no question about that. And the reach that these people have among that age group far outweighs currently what our genre of music can do.
It's also not either or; it's an and.
Right.
So I mean, you're talking like. You're talking like two night SummerSlam, 2-night WrestleMania. You could have 3 rap stars and 2 rock and roll stars. You could have like Metallica could do a song for each night as a theme song or as a whatever. There's enough for everybody.
I mean, just thinking about some examples from the past that I can think about. We had rock music that was used as theme songs for pay-per-views and for Raw and SmackDown over the years, but there's still been representation from hip-hop over the years. We all remember the Flo Rida days where it seemed like Flo Rida was on like nearly every show for a while. You think about Mark Henry's theme song.
36 Mafia, Grammy Award winning.
There's been those examples throughout the years of those two worlds, for lack of a better word, coexisting within the WWE to bring in multiple different demographics.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to be a fan of like older school. I hate to say this, but like Eminem's, the popularity of Eminem 22 years ago, whatever it was, like, and then he growing up with like Run DMC and LL Cool J and like a lot of the OGs of rap and hip hop. Like I listened to all that stuff growing up, so I still connect with some of it. I don't pretend to know all of the current artists, but when I see Cardi B pop up in a commercial with Bianca Belair, I'm like, she's globally famous. I know who she is, and I don't know her music.
Massive.
No, she has 150
and
million
Megan
followers.
Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion doing, the song for SmackDown. These people are massive, and they have such a wide reach currently that it's just undeniable. And it really doesn't matter if we don't particularly like their music.
Why don't we all just do what I do? Just listen or ask Tommy Dreamer, because he seems to know way more about it than any of us.
He does.
So, and that's not him. And absolutely, that's not him. That's his 2 ugly daughters. But
I know he's all about Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter and all those people. I love Espresso. Espresso is a great song.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the epitome.
I like some of that music
to him. So.
Yeah.
Hey,
anyway,
much love to Andre for playing all that stuff on Tommy Dreamer days.
Yes.
All right, so let's jump into the pay-per-view itself. So I love the intro, as we talked about. Like, I love the fact that people were sort of wondering, like, why was the Hell in a Cell going to kick off the show? Well, obviously we know what happened at the end of the show. You can't end that show. You can't have The Rock come out in the middle of the show and then try to follow it up. So
No.
everything made sense. And I think once we saw Hell in a Cell was going to kick off the show, we kind of knew something big was happening.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sort of telegraphed. But I honestly thought the Jimmy Uso thing was enough. I didn't think that, but we'll get to that in a minute. That Hell in a Cell match, the Mick Undertaker will always be number one for me. But I think this is the best one I've seen since then. The creativity, the violence, the use of blood was just right for that match. There were a lot of moments when I thought it was over. There were moments when I got frustrated with the ref trying to clean up Drew McIntyre and then Drew throwing the towel away. Like, so, John, I'm going to start with you, like, because I know you're a big fan of this style of wrestling when done right. And do you feel like it was done right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it was anyone else involved in it, I don't think it would have come off as well. But first and foremost, absolutely kudos to both Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. They were absolutely committed to that match and making that match as impactful visually and creatively and wrestling as possible. And they both in multiple promos said to each other, "I'm gonna make you bleed." Period. You know, and honestly, if anything else was to occur where one got bloody or one didn't, or either of them didn't get bloody, it would have been a tremendous letdown. But no, they committed to it. They were very physical, very violent, and absolutely delivered on what this match was built to be. And I absolutely loved it. And regardless of what happened on later in the show, I thought it was the perfect, absolute just punch in the mouth to start a show. And both of them walking back to the locker room and saying, "Follow that." Because it absolutely set the tone for that, you know, as violent as it was. And of course, all the boo birds were like, I was watching it and there's so much blood. I just don't, my children, I can't watch. Go fuck yourself. Shut up. It's a blood match. It's a blood feud blow-off match. Both the men claimed and stated personally to their faces, "I'm going to make you bleed." If they didn't do it, you will all be saying the same thing. Well, there's nobody blood. How can they call it bad blood? There's not one drop of blood. Again, you're not going to make everybody happy, but I thought the match was excellent.
But to that point, that was a very bloody match, and it was the only match on the card that had blood.
Yes.
As far as I know.
Yes.
And it's a pay-per-view called Bad Blood. It was one Hell in a Cell match. All of the violence, all of like the over-the-top violence was concentrated in that 130-minute match. So, Deb, for you, did you like the match, and do you think the right person won?
I did like the match, and yes, I agree with Punk winning. Since he won the last match that they had, and after that last match, he, said like, "Oh, I beat Drew. I'm done with that. I'm moving on to the next person." And Drew basically said, "Oh, well, I'm not done with you yet." So Punk, putting kind of the final nail in the coffin on this one, saying like, "Okay, now it's done."
It was very reminiscent. It was very reminiscent of a classic blow off to a long running blood feud.
Yeah,
and that's exactly the vibes I got from this. That both Punk and Drew, and even if Drew doesn't want to, he's kind of forced it. This point, right. He's lost twice to Punk, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah,
and it felt so real because of the way the story's been told over the last 10 or 11 months, however long it's been. Drew McIntyre carried a lot of that when Punk was off TV, carried a lot of it on social media. And they talked about that on Busted Open last week about how this has, been the best work that Drew's been doing. It's not just because he's in there with Punk. It's because he took it on himself to make it the best it possibly could be, because that wasn't supposed to be the story. if you remember. It was supposed to be Punk and Rollins, right? So now he gets this opportunity and just makes it one of the most exciting, most realistic feuds over the last 20 years. I mean, it's
sure.
The Bloodline's been amazing, but this felt like they genuinely hate each other. Like if a friend at WWE said no, they actually hate each other, go, yeah, that makes sense. I believe that 100%.
Yeah,
exactly.
And you could tell, like at the very end when they showed Drew legitimately crying, like he was so overwhelmed with emotion. I don't know whether because it was over, because he lost, but it lent so much credibility to the story that they had just told.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would agree, and I enjoyed the aftermath of like Punk getting the oxygen. It almost reminded me of when we saw MJF get the oxygen recently, and just the absolutely hilarious moment when MJF with the oxygen mask on goes like, "Oh, easy W, easy W." It just kind of reminded me of that, with the people kind of tending to Punk and putting the oxygen mask on him. So I thought that was a nice touch at the end there.
Yeah. I believe there's somebody in the chat that had an issue with the mask, but we'll let her speak on that moment.
Speak on that one.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it was funny. Punk was like, I want to call my wife. He's like, give me my phone. He's like, they're trying to tend to him and get him to the back, and he's trying to get his cell phone. It was great.
Yes. I really enjoyed it overall. It was good.
The moment when Punk had the toolbox and he hit Drew, like it was so, the sound resonated so loud.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God.
That was Austin whacking McMahon with the bedpan kind of resonating sound. That's exactly what that was. And it was absolutely perfect. Bravo production for getting that just right.
And there were moments when Drew either performed an offensive move or missed an offensive move, but his back took a tremendous amount of punishment on those stairs. There was a couple of times and I was like, are they gonna have to like stop this? Because Drew hit the edge of the stairs. Like there was some really scary moments that, God bless them if they've made it through without anything majorly broken, but good Lord. It wasn't just the blood and the weapons and stuff. It was those really what was it, was it area crash, or it might have been a Death Valley driver onto the table on the floor. Wow, like that takes such precision to not like die,
kill yourself, kill people in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I did see last night that Bully had tweeted. He said, "Great fight. Hate the toolbox. Hate the towel. Loved the match. Only one weapon was truly necessary." So I'll definitely be interested to hear Busted Open tomorrow morning, to kind of get his insight on the specifics of what he thought about it.
Yeah, I don't understand what Bully's thing about the toolbox is. I mean, we've built rings and like the toolbox, well, it doesn't usually go under the ring. We have a toolbox with a lot of that stuff in it. So maybe it doesn't make sense to him that it's under the ring, but I mean, there's always a toolbox nearby to assemble the ring. That doesn't bother me.
Something like that has always made more sense to me than, I don't know, a kendo stick or a trash can or
a cookie sheet. Why are there baking pans? Who's baking under the ring?
I mean, we all know Hornswoggle lives under there, but I mean, what is he exactly doing? How much room does he have? Is it like this harness, bigger on the inside, bigger underneath? And I get Bully's point, but it's much more, at least suspend disbelief for having a toolbox there than some other things that we've seen come out from under a wrestling ring. Who puts fire extinguishers under a wrestling ring? Is there really that much of a chance of fire under the wrestling ring?
And why is there a random
depth of hell again? You never know.
If you've been to an independent wrestling show in the last couple of years, there's random doors under there for no reason. Just in case you're going to build a
plywood,
house.
Boxes of light tubes, fluorescent light tubes. And
you might have to replace a bulb. Sure.
Exactly.
You never know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who it was. It might have been Red Velvet. I think Red Velvet at one of our shows had a spatula. I think she brought a spatula to the ring and was beating somebody up with one. Might have been her, but it was on. It was on brand, but I don't know where they came from.
Right,
Who's to say?
exactly.
So I want to welcome you. I don't know who Universal is, but posting some good stuff in here. Agreed that Drew somewhat carried Punk, and I don't think he carried Punk. I think the match was pretty evenly paced. I don't think. I mean, I'll agree that probably Punk's best days are behind him, only because, I mean, Ring of Honor and all those other things like that was when he was younger, doing even crazier
His
things.
long history.
What I would argue is that his psychology in ring is at an all-time high based on yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Physically, he may not be able to do what he did when he was 25 or 30, but I mean, every little moment of that match counted and mattered.
Yeah.
And all the great wrestlers over the years, especially as they've gotten later on in their careers, 10, 20, even longer years in, they absolutely have to modify their ring style. That, you know, the body, just wear and tear, injuries and stuff aside, the body just isn't able to keep up with that pace. And Punk absolutely has changed his style in ring, but it's so much, to me, it's much better now because he still has the ability to, if needed or when warranted, can uncork some of the old, you know, CM Punk stuff. But his psychology is so sound and so good right now that you don't notice that, oh, well, he's lost a step. Well, of course he's lost a step. You're talking about a man in his maybe late 40s.
Something like that, yeah.
You know, and it happens to any athlete in any sport. You know, there comes a time where Father Time, Mark Henry said, for Father Time is undefeated. And,
yeah,
you know, but the fact that he is able to, instead of trying to hold on to the past, that he is able to change and adapt and still compete at a very high level is
right.
You know, it just shows how good he has become or how good he is.
Yeah.
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 So
And I would definitely, I would definitely agree that his ability and kind of intelligence level as far as what works in storytelling is top notch right now.
he did something really interesting during this feud where I felt like CM Punk is a fire breather on the mic and could really eviscerate anybody that he wants. But I feel like he did just enough to make sure that Drew could exceed and really do what he needed to do without just coming out there every week and trashing him and making it clear that like he was the superior guy. What he did was, and of course he's an expert, he's been doing it forever, but like he was able to give Drew the room that he needed to say the things that he needed to do to get the match, to make the match even more important. One thing I did want to mention too is brought up here in the chat as well, is Drew desperately deserves gold. The only issue with Drew, the title scene right now is very crowded. Drew McIntyre absolutely has been a world champion, will be a world champion again. Right now is not the time because he wouldn't fit into any story. But there's going to come a time when he'll be back in there. And I wonder if he isn't in that, like Seth Rollins, just below the champion. Like Rollins is a main event guy. Drew's a main event guy. He can main event a pay-per-view at any time. But there's just not a spot for him to fit. I would actually let Drew take some time off.
Right. Yeah,
Maybe
I think
away
it's
from
just a
TV.
matter of finding a good place within the story, you know, where the storyline currently is as far as the title picture and where they could take it, that when there would be a good place to insert Drew back into that title picture. Because it can't just come out of nowhere just because we want to see him with a championship. It's got to somehow fit into the story arc that they're telling.
True. Absolutely true.
And so, John, what I wanted to, I think too, like if you were to pick one of the titles, right? Because right now, Cody has the undisputed WWE Championship. That's not really going anywhere right now. That's part of a much larger story. So that leaves us with Gunther's World Heavyweight Championship. To me, that's the title that Drew would be more likely to fit into a story down the road, depending on who has it.
Right.
Maybe Goldberg. Could be Goldberg. We'll see.
Goldberg. Goldberg.
By the way, I absolutely love that entire segment. I thought Gunther was amazing.
Yes.
Oh my God, Gunther is incredible. Like, what a dick, man.
Yeah, but that means it's working.
Yeah.
That means it's working.
But it didn't come
wow.
across as scripted. It came across as like, oh, he's doing crowd work like a stand up. Oh, look
Yeah.
what we have here.
Here.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And even during that little moment when they're trying to hold Goldberg back, but Gunther's still talking shit, and he goes, let him in, I'll take him. I get 3 minutes. And I'm like, oh. Oh yeah, because we all know people made fun of him for doing 3-minute matches. Okay, I remember now. Thank you for the callback. But he did those little things. It looks like he was having fun with it. So I thought it was great.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Bill obviously was annoyed overall, but you can also see he got it and he understood what the assignment was. And, and hometown crowd, there was family. It all worked in the scope that they were doing it in.
Yeah, and so if you're a kid watching this show, earmuffs, but I'm pretty sure they knew it was going to happen. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I like this. I say that because I saw people online treating it like, oh my God, this was, he just went off script.
Yeah, he just
like
happened to be in the audience.
Triple H is literally in the ring with him, watching him do this. You think he wouldn't have said something?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was fantastic. He was great.
Just behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay, Brooks calling back to the oxygen.
Okay, there you go. There's your answer. Yeah. But okay, so furthermore on that, like, there's often chatter about like what was on the script, what was not on the script. And personally, to me as a fan, I really don't care. I don't care what the plan was, what the plan was supposed to be, what it had. And I remember saying this before, like with the whole pivot situation before WrestleMania. Like, I don't really care what it was supposed to be and what ended up being. I'm watching the show to see what's actually happening, and I'm judging it based on whether I'm entertained or not. I don't care what could have been, what should have been, what would have been. I care what was.
Right.
Yeah, I don't typically care about that stuff either, because like, it's a TV show. I just assume that everything was planned. Mm-hmm. And sometimes stuff happens that changes plans. Somebody gets sick or injured, or flights get delayed, or they have to pivot, whatever. But but even that, by the time it gets to TV, what we see is planned. It might have been planned 20 minutes ago, but it was still planned.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I like if I was watching like say Law and Order SVU, we get invested into the characters and their story arcs, and certain things may happen to the characters that, we may say, oh, I wish they could have done this. Oh, I wish they could have done this. Well, they didn't. They wrote it the way they wrote it, and that's the way it happened. So are we entertained or are we not entertained?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the answer. So I want to sort of lump the next two matches into one conversation. We're big women's wrestling fans. We're big supporters, obviously, for many years. And I rarely will say anything negative about talent because I've never wrestled. What do I know? But I feel like we'll start with the Nia and Bayley match. They weren't on the same page when they were wrestling. There was something wonky. It looks like Nia tried to do some stuff that maybe was not in her wheelhouse or whatever, like her doing a Rana off the ropes. Like, that was kind of weird.
Right.
They worked hard. They worked really hard together to try to, to put on the best match they could, but it just didn't come together like we're used to seeing a Bayley match to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
So my opinion really is we've seen a lot of improvements with Nia since her return, both in ring and on the microphone. And while we have seen significant improvements, I think Bayley is just on a different level. And it is what it is. It just shows that Bayley is just kind of in the upper echelon of WWE superstars of this generation. And I'm really happy that Bailey is finally getting the recognition she deserves after all these years. I feel like she's kind of lived in the shadow of Charlotte and Becky over the years, and even Sasha. So I'm happy to see Bailey finally getting the recognition she deserves as one of the best superstars that they have. But yeah, I think in a match with Nia, it's just, while Nia has improved and is better than she was before, Bailey is just even better.
Yeah.
I have. Go ahead, John.
I just one thing real quick on the match. I'm for people trying, and it might not be the time or place, but if people are going to go for something, performers are going to go for something on a pay-per-view to give that match, that little extra something, that maybe that one extra highlight. I normally don't have an issue with it. Even if it doesn't go 100% smooth, I still appreciate the effort and them wanting to entertain and make a memory and make a memory for themselves and the people watching. But in this instance, it didn't. And I hate people who use the word botched, and simply just because if you've never been in a ring or have never taken a bump, you're using a word that doesn't exist in the business, and you're trying to discredit someone. It was call it what it was. It was a mistake, and mistakes happen. But to use the word botched like you're some sort of insider or something, like I'm smart. No, you're not. STFU and GFY.
I think that just diminishes people's talent by saying that word. It just insinuates that they're not good.
And who am I to listen to you? I don't use the term. Why? Because I've never been in a ring. I've never taken a bump. I have no reference to what any in-ring wrestling performer has because I haven't done it. So why would I use a word that would imply something I know nothing about?
Exactly.
But again, I agree with you, front row, especially in this match. Both of them worked hard and were trying to give the best match they could. It's just for whatever reason. Bully says it was a bad night at the office. And not that the match was that bad. Just a few points stuck out. Overall, overall was a very good match. So I'm just going to chalk it up to both of them trying really hard and not everything clicking, but it wasn't for a lack of effort.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to go on a very mini rant. I won't take a ton of time, I promise. But this really bothers the shit out of me. Okay. During our time and, as being wrestling fans and being somewhat involved in the wrestling business, we've had the opportunity to build the wrestling ring from parts in a bin to fully set up. That's the ring posts, the boards, the rails, all of it. It's something that Stephen Amell said on his interview on Busted Open, where he was like, that was the moment. Like when I got in the ring and I started taking bumps and I realized what it was actually, when I realized what it was, that's when I had the newfound respect for pro wrestling. And it's the same was true for me. And I've never wrestled. I've never done any of that stuff, but I've been in the ring. I've fallen down in the ring. It sucks. And I've helped build the thing, and it's steel and wood and tight cables, and it's all painful. Even if you're not in a match, it still hurts. Neil can tell you. Neil and I both got hurt setting up the ring last time because we're stupid. But no, it is one of those things where anybody who has ever had an opportunity to even just go in the ring for meet and greets or whatever, just understanding that you're not on a trampoline, you're on boards that hurt. And anybody who's up there doing all kinds of shit to entertain you, and if something goes wrong, it's live. Like it's there's no do-over. So like I agree with you, John. I hate the term botch. It indicates that you think you know more than the person who's in there doing the thing, and it's just not not fair to anybody.
It's diminishing it, implying that something went wrong because they're not good at it. Not that something went wrong because shit happens. People.
This
make
is what we're
mistakes.
saying. The term should not be used. Yes, mistakes happen in the ring. The term shows a disrespect for
Yeah.
people in the industry.
Yeah, and that's really what it is.
So-
Keep
It's
reading your dirt
disrespect for the
sheets.
people that
Keep
are
reading
doing
your dirt
the
sheets. Go
job that
ahead.
they have to do. That's very, very difficult.
Go
Yeah,
kiss
for
the
sure.
Meltzer's ass some more.
So enough of that. Like enough of that match. So that match is what it was, right? The second
Yeah.
women's match, Rhea and Liv, they killed it. I mean, the match was great. But I want to focus, and it was fantastic. They're both really, really good. They hit hard. I think that's the hardest I've ever seen Liv hit during a match. In my opinion, that was the hardest I've ever seen her go in a match. It was really, really good. I really didn't understand. I mean, I guess they laid the groundwork for Raquel, but the crowd didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
And I mean,
first
that's cool.
it was indifference, like, whoa, what's that? And I don't know. Obviously, it was planned, but at that particular point that she came in, there was a lot more other stuff going on where it wasn't her just coming out.
Yeah.
You had the human pinata, which I'm voting that is Dom Mysterio's new name from now on. That when it comes to the ring, it's not Dirty Dom, it's the human pinata, Dom Mysterio. Going on, so it worked, but I guess maybe it could have been better, but who knows? I think it was effective either way, and it gives them yet another wrinkle to this story for them to tell going forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I just want to point out, so when Dom fell out of the cage, my heart stopped for a split second. Like before you realize and see that the chain was on his ankle, like he fell forward, and I was like, oh my god. Like, yeah, that was, Seth said that was really scary. We both kind of jumped up a little bit.
For that split second, it was like, oh my god, he's going right on his head.
At the angle that he was when he kind of fell forward and fell out of the cage, he would not have landed gracefully.
No, he was not. It wasn't a planned bump. Let's put it that way. That the way he was falling, but and it worked out.
Yeah, my heart kind of stopped there for a second, and then he's like dangling on there, which just begged for someone to come hit him like a piñata.
Right. Now, and I know our good friend RJ Krasinski from the Reffin' Up podcast is in here with us tonight, and he works with two very knowledgeable, hence the name Reffin' It Up, and Jimmy Corderas and Brian Hebner, and I would love to hear them give their reaction to the refereeing during that match. And I understand it's a PLE, it's a championship match, it's kind of a weird stipulation with Dom in a cage and all that, but there was to me a lot of leeway given, and I know it's part of the story and part of it of both Michael Cole and Corey Graves absolutely grilling and roasting the referee on the job he was doing. But it was almost to the point where it almost took me out of the match. Just because.
Yeah, and RJ, sorry, real quick, just RJ says they are going to talk about it this week. And I think Jimmy Corderas also said it was going to be his Monday ref and rant. So
okay, cool.
Okay,
I will keep an eye out for that for sure.
I'm definitely interested to hear both Jimmy's and Brian's comments. But it almost, as much as I enjoyed seeing Rhea tee off on Dom, and basically as a human pinata, like Triple H said in the press conference, short of candy spilling out of his body, there could have been no better way for Rhea to get payback on Dominic for everything he has done. I thought it was perfect, but just in the way within the context of the match, it almost took me out of it because, other than Dom, the only stipulation was Dom was supposedly suspended in a shark cage. Other than that, it was a regular match. So I'm thinking, okay, regular rules apply. Rope breaks, 10 count out of the ring, this and that. and even I'm like I said, I'm even willing to go so far to say, okay, it's a championship match. The ref is showing referee's discretion, letting things go, blah 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 blah. But I thought it was a little much.
So that's what I wanted to ask you guys about. So like the ref cam where Rhea says, "Give me a minute." I'm like, that seemed weird. Like I'm hoping that's part of a chapter to this story. Right. But what was weird too is, so the ref disappears, goes over to do the stuff with the shark cage and Dom.
Right.
The match has now been a DQ, but it's not over. And then the bell rings. Nobody calls for the bell. Like it just rings, as if someone magically knows that it's the end of the match. Like it's the ref's supposed to.
Wasn't there a interference from Raquel? That
yes, but
drew the bell.
Yes. Well, no, but so Raquel interfered, but then it was the ref at that point was no longer in the ring. The ref was outside the ring over to the shark cage. And
okay,
Raquel's causing all this havoc, and the match just ended. Like the bell rang and it was over, but there was nobody on camera called for the bell. Now, if they show us another angle where the ref calls for the bell, that's fine. And I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure the guys on Reffing It Up will definitely talk about it, because on camera we didn't see that. We just heard the bell ring and like, oh, I guess it's over. So it was weird. Okay, so we have to talk about the main event. The main event had good action. Like I really felt like everybody went all out. I still think that Jacob Fatu is the most exciting part of that entire group.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see him staying under Solo forever.
Right.
In fact,
agreed.
Now that we get, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, I don't think the WWE universe is gonna let Jacob Fatu stay under Solo too long.
Right.
He is in the short amount of time he's been there and been on television, he is uber over with the WWE universe. They want to see him every week doing something.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think, so I said this to Seth earlier while we were watching it. I think Solo is still suffering from the little brother syndrome. Like he just still, and we've talked about before that, it definitely feels like it's by design that Solo's bloodline just doesn't match up to Roman's bloodline in how just the aura, aura is like a hot word these days. Everybody talks about the aura.
I hear the kids saying that.
Yeah, all the kids are saying that now. But yeah, just the aura of the bloodline under Solo just doesn't quite match up. There's something missing, and I think Solo is just still suffering from being a little bro. Like even when Jimmy came out, when the surprise happened that Jimmy came out, and there was that moment where like Jimmy comes out and it just he kind of overshadows Solo immediately. Solo's just a little bro, and it's gonna be hard for him to get out of that shadow. And I think and yes, Roman looked ripped for sure. Ripped.
Yeah.
So
Roman was not sitting on the couch eating chips while he was out. So
no, that man hasn't seen a carb in a decade.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. Every time I enjoy one, I feel bad for him and others that don't know the pure joy of enjoying carbs.
Yeah.
So something that I thought was really important, and I think if I had a chance to watch Sam Roberts and Megan Morant do their live reaction, and they talked about something that we've been talking about here, about how Roman, as the bad guy, still has a code of honor. Like he still has structure within the way that he does stuff. And Sam said something interesting. He said, but he actually was on the pre-show. Sam and Megan were talking about Roman's done some terrible things, but he doesn't lie. So Solo's just off the grid. He's doing his own thing. But like Roman has a code of honor. He feels like being the tribal chief has some sort of honor with it that he has to uphold. So when
Right.
he said to Cody, "I will have your back," he meant it. So when Jimmy showed up and all the chaos was happening post match, and Roman was like, "Okay, I fulfilled my end of the bargain. I'm out of here."
Right. Yeah.
And Jimmy was like, "No, you promised. You fucking promised to have his back." And Roman was like, "All right, you're right."
All right,
And they went
let's
back
go.
and they did it. And
Yeah.
that to me is like, that was a defining thing. And then there's a moment where it's Cody and Roman and Jimmy in the ring. The three of them in the ring. The Rock makes his triumphant return. The Rock goes
Right.
1, 2, 3, and he means the three guys in the ring. So, or at least that's what I read
It's
into
implied.
it.
Yeah.
It's implied, right? Or he was counting down to commercial break. I don't know. Could be
Maybe.
either.
It could be 3, 2, 1 to the lower third. 1, 1, 2,
Who's to
3.
say? Right.
Yeah.
But I thought it was
Speculate
very,
wildly.
very intentional, because then they went around him, around the Rock, and they shot him from behind, and they showed the guys in the ring. So you
Yeah.
had that one shot setting up the next chapter. So I say all that to ask, Jimmy's clearly aligned with Roman and his OG bloodline. Rock clearly is aligned against them, which means he's probably on the side of Solo.
Right.
Do we think that he's been pulling the strings all along, or is he coming in late and taking over as the newcomer to the new bloodline?
I kind of fall somewhere in the middle of those two. I think Rock has been paying attention, not necessarily pulling strings, but obviously keeping an eye on what's going on. And he is now at the point, seeing all this happening, that Roman has returned, and Roman has clearly pitted, caused this rift in the bloodline. And Solo doing what he's doing, he almost feels like, now I have to step in. I have to do something, either for one side or the other, to maintain or restore the dominance of the bloodline. Because while they're still the most dominant thing in WWE, regardless, this Civil War thing has absolutely the threat to destroy all of it.
Yes.
And
that's
I
something
think
we've
that's,
been talking about for
Rock
freaking
has
ever.
been going along with it, saying, "Okay, Solo, you want to be the head of the table, you want to wear the Unifala, okay, I'm gonna go along with it." But it came to a point now that Roman has exerted himself again back into things, and given the past, and again, this is what makes the story so great, is they're constantly calling back the things of the past. The Rock walking out with that People's Champions belt that was given to him by Muhammad Ali's wife for the Hall of Fame and all that. Him walking out with that, they're constantly calling back and reminding you of things that you may have not remember right away or forgotten. And that's to the point now, and again, what it sets up from here. Again, speculate wildly, but it's almost seems like Rock is like, okay, I've had enough of all y'all shit. This is what we're going to do. And I'm the final boss, and you all need to be reminded of that. And this is what we're going to do. And then we go forward from here.
All right, so if you're gonna cite the rules and not say I'm wrestling, I'm gonna say everything counts. And Deb, I want to ask your opinion, because we've seen so many breadcrumbs over the last year and change. We've seen the game day stuff. We've seen stuff backstage. We saw, and this is where it all ties in, where Triple H, Nick Aldis, and Adam Pearce were aligned against The Rock way back. Like Triple H was like, no, there's a power struggle here. And The Rock was clearly the guy. Well, on the press conference last night, Triple H is like, yeah, The Rock just does whatever the fuck he wants. Like, we have no control over it. And it was an interesting thing where he was sort of like, yeah, I still don't agree with it. Like, I would love to have creative control over this stuff, and I'm the head of content. But then this guy comes in and just shows up and does what he wants. So it's so do you feel like there's a power struggle there? Or do you think Rock's going to be mainly focused on the bloodline stuff?
I think The Rock is focused on the bloodline stuff only. That's his purpose. And if that means going over Triple H's head to get done what he wants to get done, then that's what he will do. Pretty much, along the lines of everything counts, and going back to what John said about kind of like the breadcrumbs. If we've learned anything in the past, 3 years that this bloodline storyline has been going on, is that even if it doesn't appear to make sense or mean anything when it happens, maybe later on down the road something will happen that will make those things make sense. I did not expect Rock to come out last night. I expected Rock to make his return on the first Netflix episode of Raw. I know the bloodline storyline happens on SmackDown, but I thought it would just make sense for him to appear on the first episode of Raw on Netflix, just to, be that big name appearance on that show. And especially since at the beginning of this year, Rock made his first appearance on the first show of the year in January. So that's what I've been expecting, that he would come back in January to kind of start the chapter towards WrestleMania. So being that he came out and just did that 1, 2, 3 and then left, we're left kind of with questions about, why now? What is his purpose? What is he doing? And I feel like I just have to have faith that it will make sense at some point. We don't know when. It could be months from now. But I think with this bloodline storyline, they've shown us, and especially from Paul Heyman's interview on Not Sam, he specifically said, like, every single thing in this story has a specific purpose. We may not realize it in the moment, but we'll realize it at some point down the road.
So you think it's possible that last night was a teaser and we might not see Rock back for another month or two? Or
could be. Who's to say?
Hey, who's to say?
And I think that's the beauty of it. I think, like, what intrigues me about watching pro wrestling is when we have these questions, when we can't wait to kind of put the puzzle pieces together and figure out what the big picture is, when not everything is answered for us right away, when we're still left kind of guessing, oh my God, what's going to happen next? That is classic soap opera storylines. And that's how soap operas have survived for decades and decades and decades, doing daily programming, not just weekly programming, but daily programming, constantly keeping the viewer guessing about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and then you add in the layer of social media, because after the PLE last night, we saw a couple of videos. I saw 2 different angles of the altercation between Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, and they aired it uncensored, which I thought was really interesting. And it was very World Star hip hop style. It was very captured footage, like, oh my God, what's going on here? And it was really, really well done.
And shout out to Weekly American Vodka for getting another epic product placement, because that was the whole reason that Kevin Owens jumped Cody Rhodes. Weekly pays a lot of money to have that rap on Cody's bus and advertise with WWE. They want a little extra juice off of the PLE. So kudos to them. Good investment.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only thing. So we saw the 2 different versions of that. We saw KO driving off in a gorgeous Lamborghini.
Yes.
And then we see the Rock post footage from his entire entrance, the whole segment from his videographer, and then his entire exit going through, talking to all, the Rock's here to see you, and the backstage people, all that stuff. And then he's like talking about there's Dusty Rhodes up on the thing, and like, I loved it. I just love what he's doing. He's playing the, I'm still the favorite. I'm still the people's champ. Everybody loves me.
Yeah.
But I'm running things now, and I'm kind of an assole, and I beat up Cody Rhodes, and it's complex. It's layered, and I love it.
He said it during that because evidently he was on Instagram Live as well doing that, and he goes through. He's looking at the trailers, going through the back to the loading dock area and points, "Hey, there's my boy," and Steve Austin. And another trailer is a picture of Dusty. Love you, miss you, Dream. Hate you, Sean, but love you, miss you. It's little things like that he was doing that you again speculate wildly because we still don't know. And he was live for approximately 7 to 10 minutes from the time that they started it till he was out in his gorgeous fucking brand new Ford Raptor. That's about $100,000 truck. And
he's a billionaire.
Doing all that. Yeah. He can afford it, but still, I'm like, I want that truck.
I do want to give RA says that bus is bad luck for Cody. It caught fire. Rock beat him up by it. Now KO beat him up in the NXT parking lot. Yeah, it is not gone well for the people that are in proximity of that bus. And I did see Brandy Rhodes posted a picture earlier in the day of her in the bus. So hope she's okay.
Yes.
Hope nobody attacked poor Brandy.
Yes. Hope her and Darling Libby were just fine during the.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, Pharaoh's very protective, so
yeah. Because she's good.
I don't think Pharaoh's touring with them anymore, right? I think Pharaoh's.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what he said.
Select things he may bring him.
Oh, like Brock Lesnar's. I get it.
Yeah,
an attraction. Okay.
Yeah,
I get it.
Pharaoh. Hey, Father Time is undefeated. And Pharaoh's getting old, unfortunately. And there's going to come a time when we don't have him anymore. I don't want to think about that, but it's going to come that time.
Yeah.
Before we go, we have to talk about the person that I talk about every week. It's one of my favorite, most entertaining people in all of wrestling, and that's Chelsea Green. That dumpster match she had was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Her and Michan just killed it. And Tommy Dreamer said on the show the other day that it was the best dumpster match he's ever seen.
Yes.
That's high praise coming from
that was on Saturday's show. Denise.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
The fact that
it was amazing.
And they carried it over into the PLE, which what's that smell? Oh, that's Chelsea.
Yes.
Oh my God. They kicked her out of the party because but Piper can stay. And that was the best part. Piper, you can stay. But you gotta go. You smell.
Yeah, that was a very, very entertaining moment. And I just want to mention, like, they showed several times the party suite with all the wrestlers and the legends and everybody. And I don't know if you guys saw, DDP posted earlier that he had an incredible time being there last night in that party suite with all the legends. And he, talked about how there's been such a massive change under Triple H and the new TKO ownership, where the legends are treated like as legends that paved the way, not just as old wrestlers. And he said he had such an amazing time that he left that show and immediately signed his Legends contract and sent it in. And I think it's very telling that we hear, we've heard Bully say, we've heard so many other, older wrestlers, Hall of Famers, legends say it, that under this new regime, there's been a massive difference in how the legends are treated. And I really love to hear that. I think it's awesome that they have that party suite where the legends can come in and hang out and mingle and talk to the current and younger wrestlers and, probably share some advice and just have a good time and just be there and feel respected. And I think that is a very, very good sign for what this new WWE is about.
Yeah. And for the fact that they showed people, some of the people that were in the suite, but also were in the audience. And again,
yes,
there was a very common theme throughout the whole show, especially because where they were at, State Farm Arena and Atlanta, Georgia. On the site of probably one of the most iconic and infamous wrestling venues in the world, of course, the Omni. And, because, when you think about it, it's like, well, why do we have the Brain Busters, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson? Yes, they're Hall of Famers, but what building are we in?
Exactly.
You know, it's the constant callbacks to the Omni. Corey Graves mentioning the last battle of Atlanta that made Dave LaGreca, according to Bully, do zoomies in his living room. Good. And if there's anybody left on the planet that has not seen the last battle of Atlanta from the Omni featuring Buzz Sawyer versus Wildfire Tom Ridge, go on YouTube and watch it. It's an absolutely amazing match. And you can understand
I'm
why
sure it's
Dave,
also on Peacock somewhere.
I'm sure it is,
If you
but
can find
you know,
Well,
but I
that
love that they're really making this effort to tie everybody in. And lastly,
Yes.
we saw Mickey James on television.
Yay!
You know,
We
with
got a
Pop
Mickey
Mate.
James
Yes,
sighting.
yes. You know, other than being just Nick Aldis's wife, you know, she is hardcore country. She is, you know, WWE legend Mickey James, who we haven't seen
Oh, yeah.
do anything, honestly.
She's been
Outside
working
of
hard in
Gauntlet.
OVW is what she's been doing.
Well, but still,
Yeah.
it's still nice to see her get an appearance like that. Just a simple nod and acknowledgement for the crowd, and the crowd popped. So that was great.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I love the fact that they celebrate the history of so many things on commentary lately. I have to call out Steve. Steve, we love you, but we talked about this already. You're late to the party. You must have stepped away. Go back and watch the replay.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Steve.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing was really cool. All that stuff happened afterwards. It's all part of the story. There's just so many little moments. We could spend another 2 hours talking about all the other shows that were on this week. We don't have time for that. So
Yeah.
So we are late. I'm hungry. I'm late for my cigar. I get cranky.
Sorry.
It's Sunday night.
Deb, where can people find you on the socials?
Right there at that's so debonair on the Twitter machine and the Instagram. Tonight I'm wearing my FTR t-shirt. For those of you, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, FTR has been crusading to help the Western North Carolina and surrounding areas from the Hurricane Helene destruction. Cash shared his GoFundMe again earlier that they have now raised $67,000. I think he said that today he's probably going to end the GoFundMe and start figuring out how to spread the funds around. Yes. FTR has the best shirts. I have more than a handful. So yeah, there's not only Cash's GoFundMe, but there's so many other GoFundMes and other ways to help out. So, if you've seen any of the pictures and stuff of what they're going through down there, help out if you can. $67,000 in just one GoFundMe is pretty incredible. So that's all I've got. I support FTR.
Yeah, I want to add to that just because the shirt that I just showed you, Dax posted. It's to raise money for Summit Coffee and the Arts District that got wiped out in Nashville. So, real quick story: 2 years ago, we were at WrestleCade, and I finally got a chance to meet Dax and have a conversation with him. We talked for seemed like a half an hour. It's probably like 10 minutes, but it was really cool. But it was here, only like half an hour from my house. So, I told him that we go to Asheville a lot, and he's like, "Oh, you have to come to Summit Coffee." And he's like, "When you go, message me and just let me know if you like it." I'm like, "Okay." So, a month later, we went with my family. We took a trip to Asheville, and we went to Summit Coffee. And I sent him a message just saying, "Hey, we're here." And he gave me a hard time about not inviting him. It was really funny. But I saw that it was devastated, and he was raising money for that because that. How do I describe it? That coffee house was in a larger hall of all these different vendors and things like that. And the whole thing got wiped out. So I'm going to buy one of these shirts because I have a very small personal connection, having been there, and the coffee was good too. But it was really sad to see. So, but I mean, these guys are doing everything they can to try to help. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I would have forgotten. Yeah. All right, John.
I don't do the finger thing. Deb does very well. But I am at Twisted Metal Fab on the Instagram and the X, and of course, keep up with the exploits of the most dangerous weapon in professional wrestling, of course, the Ass Kicker 9000. And you can follow his exploits on Instagram at AssKicker9K. I have a bit of a personal note, not to be a Debbie Downer too much, but there is another storm coming. Someone named it Millhouse. It's named Milton. It's another hurricane that is heading directly in the path of the good people of Florida, which they are used to. But this one is very personal to me again, because where it's looking to head for is right where our resident medical expert, one Miss Brooke Flath, and if the name sounds familiar, yes, she is my daughter. They're directly in the path of it. Put it this way. As she said, we are fucked without lube. Jim Cantor just landed in Fort Myers today. That's how that you know everything is about to go down when Jim Cantor is in your hood.
Yes.
And I worry about her, of course. She is a very capable grown woman. She holds it all together very well. She is a member of the medical and emergency community down there as an ER tech and paramedic. Her stepdad, Nick, is a member of the EMS community down there. So they don't have the option, per se, to evacuate until it gets really bad. They are literally going to be the last people to go. So as usual, they will be there doing what they can to help everybody else out. And just bear in mind, people, yeah, it's easy for me to say, oh, well, it ain't up here, but there are people that get affected by this. People, as we've seen in Western North Carolina, get absolutely devastated and wiped out, and people trying to help them. All I'm going to say is give if you can. Be patient with people trying to get help to people. It's such a huge demand. Don't be quick to say, oh, these people are no good. They're just give it a chance, people. These things do happen, and how we react to them shows how we are as people. So, Brooke, I love you. Stay safe. Be safe. I'm sure you'll continue to text me all kinds of funny things as you normally do during these things. Move the freaking generator, for Christ's sake, so you don't asphyxiate yourselves trying to run it in the fucking garage. And happy wrestling,
okay,
everyone.
Dad.
Yeah, I will second that. Living only a short distance from the devastation here in North Carolina, it's been a lot. Some positive news in November. John and I will be at WrestleCade.
Yes. So looking forward to that. I'm sorry for Neil's misfortune, but it is my good fortune. His ticket will not go to waste. The Front Row and I will be at WrestleCade all 3 days, starting that Friday after Thanksgiving. I will be en route, traveling on Thanksgiving by vehicle. I'm doing a good old-fashioned road trip from New Jersey to North Carolina to the Front Row Palatial Estates, and then we will be heading over to WrestleCade Friday morning. I'm looking so forward to it, and good to see a lot of our friends there, and just so looking forward to it. I'm literally marking days off of my calendar for it.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're coming, because every year it gets bigger and bigger. And I always tell people, man, I just wish everybody could come to this thing, because when we first started going years ago, it was in one little conference room. It was in like the small ballroom. And now it's taken over the entire convention center. Like the Benton Convention Center has these big rooms where they've now taken over the entire 2 floors with all of the wrestlers. If you look at the WrestleCade site or their Facebook page, the list of people that are going to be here is insane. Friday, John and I are going to the women's wrestling panel, and they've not announced the panelists yet, but I have it on good authority. It's going to be some pretty big names. And then we have the TNA live event Friday night. And then after that is the APA party, and that's just Friday. Saturday has a ton of other stuff. There's the Super Show. There's the Hardy Boys are doing something after the Super Show. There's the all-day meet and greets, and then there's Ladies' Night Out on Sunday, and there's other stuff that we're not even going to be able to go to because there's so much stuff going on.
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, AML is having a show after Ladies Night Out Sunday afternoon.
Right.
During the final day of the convention and the meet and greet stuff itself. So yes, I'm very thankful, Neil. Like I said, I hate to capitalize on others' misfortune, but in this case, I had no problem doing it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am PW Front Row on the socials. You can find us at Nation's Corner on Twitter, which I will not call X, and the Nation's Corner across all the other socials. And thank you to everybody behind the scenes who helps make this possible. We've got a whole bunch of people doing graphics and social media and all the good stuff, and we appreciate all of you. So appreciate y'all, and we're going to see you all next week. Have a great one. Later.
See you.